Magic lights, magic moments, magical highs. Hey, yeah, I was depressed, frustrated, and lonely. Then a voice from nowhere came and consoled me. Man, do the best you can. You stand up and be a man. You're in the magic city with magic lights, oh magic moments.
That was my man Buju, Magic City. And there's a line right there that he just said, there I was, depressed, frustrated, and lonely. Then a voice from nowhere came and consoled me, saying, man, do the best you can. You stand up and be a man. You're in the Magic City, magic lights, magical moments, magic nights. That's my man Buju Banton right there. But I want to say that's a perfect segue into today's discussion and today's topic. I want to talk about depression. The disclaimer, I'm no doctor. I have zero credentials, okay? The only credentials I have is what I read a book. That's it. I read a book. So that's just a disclaimer. Get that out the way. Yeah, I want to talk about depression. And, to be honest and to be candid, I find myself in the throes or in the troughs of depression right now. I find myself in the troughs of depression. And the reason why I say that is because there are symptoms. There are symptoms of depression that you have to be aware of. One of those symptoms, and it all depends on your on the individual. Everyone's a little different. But I would put it like this. I was 240 pounds. I walk around at 240. And so January, the beginning of this year, I was about 240. We're at today's February 20th. Yesterday, I went to the gym. I weighed myself. I was actually 227. So I lost 13 pounds. Yeah, approximately 13 pounds in a month and a half. So a month and a half, right? And I can honestly say that's because because I'm battling depression, I lost 13 pounds. I have zero appetite. And these are some of the symptoms, some of the signs for if a person is depressed to recognize. You can do your own psychotherapy, which is a practice of diagnosing depression. And if you find out like a loss of hope, a loss of interest in activities, you lose interest in certain things in life, you just become apathetic, completely apathetic. You don't care about anything. You're indifferent. And again, so these are some of the symptoms: apathy, loss of interest, lack of hope. You realize weight loss, losing a significant amount of weight in a very short amount of time, and just a general overall sadness. So, if you've seen any of my videos, I talked about I've been going through some relationship issues as of recent, and it's taken a toll, right? It's taken a toll. Some days I feel fine, and there's others where I can't even get out of the bed. I've been in the bed, and I'm like, wow, it's affecting me in so many different ways. So I said, let me do a video on this. And the only thing I can say that's positive for me is that I had prior knowledge of how serotonin works in the brain. And serotonin is it's a neurotransmitter, and it conveys signals between your nerve cells, which are the synapses. Your nerve cells have what's called synapse. Each nerve cell has at the end a synapse. Synapse is a conjunction. It's a junction. It's a point where nerves connect. So the neurotransmitter serotonin conveys information between the synapse, which is the junction between the nerves, throughout the brain. Remember, your brain have over 40 billion or whatever billion nerve cells. So serotonin is responsible for communicating information. It's a neurotransmitter, signals information, and it's actually called the happy chemical. This is just a more colloquial term for it. It's called a happy chemical because serotonin is found to be responsible, based off scientific research, responsible for happiness, your overall happiness, and you feeling overall just good about yourself, your self-esteem, your confidence, that general good feeling you get about yourself. Serotonin is found to be the chemical that is responsible for that. So behind depression, and let me be careful with this, behind depression, scientists have found out that behind every form of depression, there is a direct correlation with a lack of serotonin or a low level of serotonin production. Now, serotonin is produced within the brain. It's also produced within the intestines, blood platelets, and in the CNS, your central nervous system. These are the 4 areas: brain, blood platelets, intestine, gastrointestinal tract, and the CNS, central nervous system. These are the 4 main areas where serotonin is produced, and most of it is produced in the brain. So if a person goes to a doctor, for instance, and they're diagnosed with depression, what they would do is they would write them up a prescription for what's called SSRI, which is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which is a drug. When serotonin is released in the brain, it is absorbed. It is absorbed by the CNS. When serotonin is released by the CNS, it's absorbed by the body. What the SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, does is it inhibits, and hence the SSRI, I means inhibit. It inhibits serotonin from being absorbed by the body. Therefore, your serotonin levels remain elevated. The higher serotonin levels, again, the better you feel about yourself. Because again, serotonin is a neurotransmitter in the sense that it transmits signal between the nerve cells. It's biochemical. It's created within the biology. And so if you're not producing enough serotonin, you are more prone and likely to fall into depression. And in this sense, it is considered a part of your, as far as prone and your aptitude for depression, your likelihood to fall into depression. In this sense, it is more genetical. It is more based off your genetics. In that regards, okay? So it's genetics in regards of whether your body, your biology produces enough serotonin on its own or a lack thereof, and therefore would make you more susceptible or vulnerable to depression. Now, there are some dietary supplements that we can take, like that, as far as diet's concerned, as far as like elevating your serotonin levels. Eggs, the protein in eggs is a great source. Wheat products, cashews, peanuts, any kind of nut product, peanuts, cashews. And scientists have found out that exercise is one of the best and most potent weapons to actually increase your serotonin, endorphin, and other chemicals that's responsible for your overall well-being. So exercising, dieting, the right foods, and proper sleep, there are things you can do to increase your serotonin levels. But be that as that may be, life happens, and depression is so serotonin is an antidepressant, right? It's an antidepressant, but it's endogenous because it's created within the brain. The SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are exogenous. Exogenous meaning it's created in a lab by a doctor or scientist, and you introduce it to the body. And because it is created outside of the body, there is that inherent danger or potential for danger of some kind of dependency that you will develop, right? So that's why it's not good to necessarily use medication or antidepressants. It's best to try to use dieting, exercising, some of the things I just named. And again, not a doctor, just read a book, all right? So personally, I see the symptoms in myself because me and my wife, we fell apart. I just bought this house for us, and she chose to go back home to her parents. Long story short, that's what, the gist of it. And I worked my tail feathers off. Like I really, really put my head down and grind like crazy. If anybody bought a house in New York, they know that it's a crazy process. So I really put my all into this, and we got the house, but family members intervened, and put it like this: haters. Okay, your own family sometimes can be the worst haters, than strangers. So long story short, that just kind of like shit, it just threw a monkey wrench in the plan and completely altered our lives as a unit. So here I am, and don't know what's going to happen. And it gnaws away at me. Like I said, I lost 13 pounds in a month and a half. And sometimes I find it very difficult to get out of the bed. It's just been very difficult, right? I work on Wall Street. I'm a stockbroker, and that is its own animal. That's its own stress, its own beast. So, couple that, couple that with personal family. I have a daughter as well, which I haven't seen in a week. Couple that with all that, it's a gut wrenching. It's a gut punch. It's a knockout punch. So I share this with you guys because I know I'm not exclusive, right? It's not like what I'm going through is an exclusive. I'm sure there's we all go through our own struggles. Everyone has something. So again, just kind of understanding what depression is, right? Knowing how to combat it. And like what I do, I just went to the gym today, and my workouts haven't been as efficient, as effective, and potent as normal, because again, I am going through my own depressive state, and but I still make sure that I go. I'm consistent. I still go 3, 4, 5 days a week, and I do a half hour. Normally I do an hour, hour and a half, but as of recent, I've just been doing about a half hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, but just making sure I stay 3, 4, 5 days a week consistent as much as possible. And, just be, I spoke in the previous videos about electropositivity and electronegativity. And when a person is left behind, when someone walks out of your life, obviously it brings on this can be one of the triggers for depression. But what it also does on a scientific note is that it throws you into a state of electronegativity. And once you fall into that state elicits and creates negative behavior patterns in the psyche. And that comes out in your actions and your physical manifestation, which are your deeds. So it's important to understand that when we go through these situations, whether you lose someone leaves, some sad life-altering event happens, be mindful that electronegativity is a state that we go into. And it's a state that is very detrimental, very dangerous, can be very, very dangerous if you're not aware of the moving parts and what's going on in a subatomic level. And when I say subatomic, meaning on an invisible realm, particles, scientific particles, there are energies that are constantly around us and in us and through us and constantly acting up on us. And we use these, it's called matter. And then I mentioned before, matter can be manipulated. So if you're not aware that you're in the electronegative state, that matter that you're in will be manipulating you and will be destructive. It will be very destructive, and you will begin to form destructive behavior patterns because you're in the electronegative state. So being mindful that we can fall into these states, and these states are destructive and inherently harmful, we can begin the process to recover, to heal, and to bring ourselves out. So, depression, electronegativity, all these different states are all they have one and the same common goal, which is to lower your frequency and to ultimately can be very dangerous for your health, your mental health, your physical health, and your financial health, and family, friends. It can affect relational health, all of that. So, like I said, I myself am in my own, belly of depression, if you will. And, but I'm battling with no drugs, no medication, just my faith, believing in God, and the information that he's allowed me to access via a book. Because like I said, I have zero credentials other than a book, several books, studied, researched. But, like I said, if there's anyone under the sound of my voice that might be going through depression and feeling, depression can be brought on by various, my trigger and your trigger might be completely different, but the end result is the same. Depression is depression. So if there's anyone under the sound of my voice that might be going through some form of depression, just know this, that you will make it through, and you can make it through, and do things that are going to make you laugh. Do things that's going to make you happy. Do things that, because all these things are going to they're going to encourage the release of serotonin in the brain. And if the brain or the CNS or the gastrointestinal tract is not secreting normal dosage of serotonin, then depression will cascade. It will bring it on even faster. So we need to do things, eat healthy, exercise, like I said, most importantly, to release endorphins, to release the epinephrines, other chemicals in the brain, norepinephrines, right, other chemicals in the brain that is also responsible, because they're multifaceted. They don't just do one thing. It's multifaceted. But serotonin, again, primarily is the happy chemical, the happy hormone, or the happy secretion. So till next time, y'all, Mark here, still cooking my books in spite of, and we'll continue to bring information. Peace.